as our church is in this series focusing on the one in 2021, there's nobody like Paul, who we've been looking at in the podcast of his like must know verses. There's nobody like Paul who better understands thinking of the one, thinking of the outsider. And so as I read this passage he leaves us in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, I just want you to see how helpful this can be in your own journey as you think of the one, and as you and I are more and more trying to help other people and one another follow Jesus. Here's what Paul says, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18 and following. For the message of the cross, that is the death of Jesus, is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are being saved, it is the power of God, because it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise. The intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? Since in the wisdom of God, he saw it fit that the world, through its wisdom, did not know him. God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached, that's Jesus, to save those who believe. Jews demand signs, Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jewish and foolishness to the Gentile. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. Let me say it like this. Paul is reminding us that when we tell people our story of how we found Jesus, you got to remember that when people hear that, to them it sounds like foolishness. Remember, Jesus is the person who taught us that the path upward is actually downward. Remember, it was Jesus who taught us that the last are the first, that it is by dying that we really live, right? Jesus gives us contrary wisdom. Jesus invites us to a very against the stream way of life, and he invites us into a topsy-turvy, upside down, kingdom. And so what I want to remind you, and what Paul really does a good job of reminding us, is that we present an alternative culture. We present an alternative community. We present an alternative kingdom when we talk about Jesus. And that's why some people are going to struggle with it. That's why when you start getting healthy in your world, your family starts losing their mind. That's why when you start creating boundaries and doing things that are good, right, and best for following Jesus, it's going to confuse some of your closest friends. And what you and I have to remember is that despite how contrary and weird that feels, following Jesus always feels that way. So as we think of the one, as we help one another follow Jesus, remember that we are inviting people into a completely different world.